March 22nd, 1995. Broadwood Stadium, Cumbernauld. A man collapses while filming a youth coaching program. Within 24 hours, he's gone. His name was Davie Cooper, and his tragic death at just 39 years old stunned an entire nation. But this isn't just a story about how he died. It's about the genius he was, the injustice he faced, and the legend he became. Davie Cooper possessed what many called a Harvard-educated left foot. His technical ability was so extraordinary that teammates struggled to find words adequate enough to describe it. Ray Wilkins, who played alongside him at Rangers, famously said Cooper was like a Brazilian trapped in a Scotsman's body. Former Scotland manager Andy Roxburgh went even further, claiming Cooper was so perfectly balanced and technically gifted that he could have played a violin with that left foot. This wasn't hyperbole. This was reality. Cooper's genius manifested itself most spectacularly in the 1979 Drybro Cup final against Celtic. With 12 minutes remaining, he received the ball inside the Celtic area and proceeded to produce what would become Rangers' greatest ever goal. What followed was a mesmerising 7-touch routine that defied physics and belief. Chest, flick, 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 chest, finish. He lobbed the ball away from converging defenders Murdo MacLeod and Tom McAdam, cushioned a volley over Alan Snedden's head, and calmly tucked it past goalkeeper Peter Latchford. Even Celtic defender Danny McGrain, one of Scotland's greatest ever players, described the surreal sequence as something he'd never seen before. What made Cooper truly special wasn't just what he could do, but how he did it. He had virtually no right foot and wasn't particularly quick. Yet through a sleight of hip that allowed him to beat defenders without even touching the ball, he turned these apparent weaknesses into irrelevant details. His left foot contained every pass, every cross, every type of finish you could imagine. It was a complete toolkit wrapped in one limb. Before we go further, I want to hear from you. What's your favourite Davie Cooper moment? Did you ever see him play live, or have you only watched the highlights? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another tale of football's forgotten legends. Cooper's professional journey began at Clydebank in May 1974. Over 3 years with the Bankies, he made 188 appearances and scored 46 goals, announcing himself as a player of rare quality. His performance against Rangers in the 1976 League Cup quarter-final, where he scored a match-saving equaliser in a thrilling 3-all draw, convinced Rangers manager Jock Wallace that this was a player he needed at Ibrox. In June 1977, Rangers signed Cooper for £100,000. The impact was immediate. In his first season, he won the domestic treble. Success followed success. Over 12 years at Rangers, he accumulated an astonishing trophy haul: 7 Scottish League Cups, 4 Scottish Cups, and 3 Scottish League Championships. He played 321 league matches with an additional 56 substitute appearances, scoring 49 league goals. These numbers told the story of a player who delivered consistently at the highest level, but statistics alone don't capture the complexity of Cooper's Rangers career, because hidden within those trophy-laden years were what became known as his lost years, a period of professional marginalisation that would haunt him and waste some of his most productive seasons. The problem began in 1978. Jock Wallace, the manager who had signed Cooper and championed his creative freedom, resigned after that triumphant first season. He was replaced by Rangers legend John Greig. The change was immediately problematic for Cooper. Greig was not as much of an admirer as Wallace had been, and Cooper found himself constantly fighting for a place in the starting lineup. What unfolded was more than just a managerial preference. It was an ideological war between two fundamentally different visions of football. Greig represented the traditional Scottish archetype: rugged, uncompromising, disciplined, pragmatic. Cooper embodied the opposite: free-flowing, individualistic, artistic, unpredictable. Greig believed Cooper was lazy and tactically ill-disciplined on the pitch. His solution was frequent omission. The clash between the two men had been foreshadowed years earlier, before Cooper even joined Rangers. In an early encounter, Greig aggressively fouled Cooper and warned him that any future attempt to beat him would result in an even harder challenge. It perfectly illustrated the pragmatic win-at-all-costs mentality that viewed technical subtlety with deep suspicion. The managerial culture of early 1980s Scottish football was hostile to flair players, actively celebrating destructive football over the creative game. The psychological toll on Cooper was severe. He became depressed for several years about his career, watching from the sidelines as his prime years slipped away. The early 1980s should have been Cooper at his peak, terrorising defences across Scotland and Europe. Instead, he spent them fighting for recognition from a manager who fundamentally didn't believe in his style of play. The resolution came later in his career. Under Graeme Souness, Cooper experienced a renaissance. Souness valued his contribution, even stating that Cooper was as responsible as anybody for their championship success. But by 1989, even that appreciation wasn't enough to guarantee regular football. At age 33, Cooper transferred to Motherwell specifically to secure guaranteed first-team football. This move to Motherwell proved to be one of the most significant decisions of his career. What could have been seen as a step down became instead a triumphant validation. Cooper played 157 times for Motherwell, scoring 17 goals, but more importantly, he rediscovered the joy that had been suppressed at Rangers. The highlight came in 1991 when Motherwell defeated Dundee United 4-3 in an epic Scottish Cup final. Cooper, now in his mid-30s, had won his first major honour away from Rangers. The late career triumph served as powerful evidence that those 5 years under Greig had been wasted, not because Cooper lacked ability, but because the system refused to accommodate his genius. Yet Cooper's marginalisation wasn't limited to club football. His international career presents an even more puzzling mystery. Despite possessing talent that international players like Ruud Gullit called among the best they'd ever witnessed, Cooper earned only 22 caps for Scotland. 22. For a player of his calibre, this number represents not just underutilisation, but systemic failure. Cooper represented Scotland at the 1986 World Cup in Mexico, making 2 appearances, but he never started a World Cup match. His sole sustained period of regularity for the national team was a brief spell in 1984 and 80. The reasons were institutional. The same tactical conservatism that marginalised him at Rangers infected the national team setup. Managers like Jock Stein and Alex Ferguson sought robust, pragmatic players to navigate qualifying tournaments. Cooper's artistry, his unpredictability, his individualism didn't fit the mould. His most defining international moment came in September 1985 during a crucial World Cup qualifier against Wales. In the 80th minute, Cooper scored a penalty to secure a 1-1 draw, propelling Scotland into the playoffs against Australia. But this pivotal goal occurred moments before manager Jock Stein suffered a fatal heart attack in the dugout. Joy and tragedy intertwined in the same breath. The death of Stein created managerial instability at a critical juncture. Alex Ferguson inherited the role, later admitting he didn't want the job and was unprepared for the responsibility of leading Scotland to the World Cup finals. Cooper's low cap count has since been reframed by historians not as a reflection of his inadequacy, but as a defining failure of 1980s Scottish football to recognise and consistently utilise extraordinary technical talent. He became known as Scottish football's last genius precisely because his international underachievement stood as an indictment of a culture where skill and entertainment had been banished from the Scottish game. Then came March 22nd, 1995. Cooper was at Broadwood Stadium filming a youth coaching television programme called Shoot. He was still playing, still coaching, planning to retire as a player only at the end of that season. He was fit, active, seemingly healthy. Then he collapsed. The cause was a massive subarachnoid hemorrhage, a form of stroke caused by bleeding on the brain. Cooper was immediately transported to Monklands Hospital, where a CT scan confirmed the diagnosis. He was then transferred to the Institute for Neurological Sciences at the Southern General Hospital in Glasgow, placed under the care of consultant neurosurgeon Mr. Cruikshank. Doctors attempted to mitigate the severe effects through sedation and blood pressure control, trying desperately to reduce brain swelling and improve circulation, but the damage was catastrophic. By approximately 10 p.m. that evening, it became evident that Cooper was losing all neurological activity. Sedation was stopped for a final clinical assessment. On the morning of March 23rd at 9:45 a.m., Mr. Cruikshank and a colleague confirmed that Davie Cooper was brain dead. His life support system was officially switched off at 10 a.m. The medical team confirmed that Cooper would not have been aware at any point of what was happening. It was a small mercy in an enormous tragedy. Subarachnoid hemorrhage is a relatively rare form of stroke, accounting for between 1 and 7% of cases, yet causing 25% of stroke-related deaths. It often strikes younger adults more frequently than other types of stroke. The circumstances of Cooper's death, a sudden fatal collapse during physical activity, was documented but exceedingly unusual. While long-term physical fitness is typically protective against stroke, the acute onset of vigorous activity has occasionally been associated with subarachnoid hemorrhage. Studies show that cases linked to sport account for only 1.2% of all subarachnoid hemorrhage cases. Even more remarkably, patients in sports-related cases generally have milder presentations and better outcomes. One study reported 0 deaths in the sports group, contrasting sharply with a 4% death rate in the control group. Cooper's rapid decline to brain death within 24 hours placed him in the most severe clinical category, defying every expected trend. His specific cerebrovascular rupture, likely an undetected aneurysm, was massive and acutely catastrophic. His elite physical conditioning, maintained throughout his career, could not possibly mitigate the severity. The profound shock following Cooper's death was immediate and widespread. His passing stunned Scottish football fans everywhere. Thousands of mourners lined the streets of Hamilton for his funeral at Hillhouse Parish Church on March 27, 1995. The gates at the Copland Road end of Ibrox were covered in flowers and scarves, a spontaneous outpouring of grief from supporters who recognised they'd lost something irreplaceable. The public demand for recognition led to swift memorialisation. Motherwell Football Club acted with remarkable speed, naming their newest stand the Davie Cooper Stand. It opened just 2 months after his death in May 1995. This action symbolised the unique respect Cooper commanded outside the polarised Old Firm environment, and the immense value Motherwell placed on his contribution to their 1991 Scottish Cup triumph. In 1999, a substantial bronze statue was commissioned and erected by South Lanarkshire Council at the Hamilton Palace Sports and Recreation Grounds, approximately 3 miles from where Cooper grew up. The statue features a plaque detailing his 22 international caps and numerous club honours, including those 7 Scottish League Cups. The memorial has since been restored to ensure its preservation, a testament to the enduring affection for Cooper's memory. The rapid and prominent memorialisation served as a collective corrective narrative, a retrospective attempt to bestow the full measure of honour that the tactical biases of the 1980s had failed to afford him during his playing days. Cooper's legacy possesses a rare ability to bridge fierce rivalries. 10 years after his death, both Rangers and Motherwell wore specially inscribed shirts when they contested the League Cup final in his honour. This dual commemoration, transcending traditional loyalties, confirmed that Cooper's brilliance had achieved revered status across the entire Scottish football landscape. The constant repetition of foreign praise, like Ruud Gullit's assessment, has been instrumental in reinforcing Cooper's international reputation, despite his limited caps, providing external validation for what Scottish fans always knew internally: they were watching genius. Davie Cooper's story is ultimately about the friction between artistry and pragmatism, between individual brilliance and systemic conservatism. He was an unparalleled technician whose Harvard-educated left foot provided moments of staggering beauty, yet his professional trajectory was marked by tactical rejection and institutional failure. His lost years under John Greig and his criminally low international cap count stand as indictments of a footballing culture that celebrated destruction over creation. The ultimate tragedy, a catastrophic stroke that killed him within 24 hours, cut short a career experiencing a glorious late renaissance at Motherwell. His sudden death instantly transformed the narrative from sporadically selected genius to revered icon. Cooper's enduring legacy is built on the synthesis of his singular technical skill, the injustice of his professional marginalisation, and the profound tragedy of his early death. If you believe legends like Davie Cooper should never be forgotten, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the beautiful game's most unforgettable figures. His story reminds us that genius isn't always recognised in its time, but true brilliance, once witnessed, can never truly die. Davie Cooper remains the yardstick against which all future Scottish flair players must inevitably be measured, forever immortalised, not just for his trophies, but for the sheer romance of what could have been.